Happy Wednesday, 7th grade history. We're going to talk today about the executive officers of the state of Illinois. This is just kind of a brief overview, and if you want to follow along with me, I'm going on page 65 and 66 of your Constitution booklets. Okay? Hopefully you guys are continuing with your readings, and you are going through and answering all those. Remember, I want you guys to have those Constitution pages 61 through page 68 or 69. I can't remember specifically what I said before. By the end of the week. Okay? So send those to me via email or something like that. Let's talk first about the governor, most important executive officer in the state of Illinois. What do you need to be the governor? Well, you need to be at least 25 years old. A resident of the state for 3 years preceding the election, and a U.S. citizen. So guess who can run for the governor? This guy right here. Am I ever going to do it? No. When we're talking about the governor, he or she has a lot of responsibilities. One of them is he or she appoints the members of the state government. Now, all the officers that I'm talking about today are not appointed by the governor. Okay? So Lieutenant Governor, Comptroller, Treasurer, they are not appointed by the governor. But there are some that are appointed, different departments. So Illinois Department of Education, Illinois Department of National Resources. If you have a parent in the state government, more than likely their high boss, like the person at the very top of their department, was appointed by the governor. Okay? So that changes around when the governor is elected. Also, their duty is to reorganize different government agencies. But also, like the president, they can grant pardons, commutations, or reprieves. And what that means is, if someone is accused of a crime, they can basically get rid of their sentence. A pardon is that it's almost like the crime never happened, and they get to get out of jail. A commutation, it means they commute their sentence, which means, like, let's say you're in jail for a crime. Governor hears your story, says, this person's a good person still. So they don't have to be in jail anymore. You've got your time served. And so also they have to give a message to the General Assembly. This is called the State of the State, and it's kind of modeled after the State of the Union that the president has to give. The governor is also the commander-in-chief of the state militia, which, of course, is the National Guard. This is only, though, during peacetime. If there is a federal emergency, the state National Guard becomes what's called nationalized, and that means then the control of the National Guard is given not to the governor, but to the president of the United States. This is not done very often. This is only done in extreme emergencies like war. Also, the governor calls a special session of the General Assembly, very similar to the president, and also has to submit a budget. Now, what are the biggest power of the governor? Well, the biggest power of the governor is that the governor gets to veto laws. And unlike the president, there are actually 3 different types of vetoes that the governor has. They're a little bit different than what the president has. The governor has something called a regular veto. This is very similar to what the president has in the United States, where if he doesn't like the bill, he vetoes it, it's rejected outright by the governor. But then there are 2 other types of vetoes that a governor has that the president does not have. The governor can do something called an item veto. This is sometimes called a line item veto, where, let's say the governor likes a bill. It's great, he really enjoys it, but there's a line where they say, you know what, we're going to reduce the governor's salary and he's only going to make 50 cents a year. The governor says, I don't like that. So he can, take out his little Sharpie and he can scratch off, not literally, of course, he can scratch off that line and says, I like everything in this bill except that line. And then it becomes law if he signs it that way. Another thing is, let's say that there's a bill, and the governor says, this is a great bill, but it's missing something. He can make an amendatory veto, where he makes a specific recommendation, says, I want you guys to add this. It kind of like staples on to the bill an extra piece of paper with part of the bill. Not literally, of course, but kind of think of it like that. So those are the three types of vetoes. He can do a regular veto, he can do a line item veto, he can do an amendatory veto, okay? And that's a little bit about the governor. I'm going to look at my notes, and let's talk about the lieutenant governor. It's kind of confusing for the lieutenant governor because we sometimes think of them as kind of like the vice president of the state. In a sense, yes, that's what they are, but in a sense, no, that's not what they are. The lieutenant governor, basically, her in this case, our lieutenant governor is a woman. Her name is Juliana Stratton. She was elected along with Governor Pritzker. And her duty is to exercise the powers in the executive branch that may be delegated to him or her by the governor and that may be prescribed by law. If that sounds really vague, it's because it's really vague. Basically, the lieutenant governor does whatever the governor tells them to do. So, for instance, they could serve as the governor if the current governor is unable to serve due to death, disability, impeachment, resignation, or absence from the state. This is very relevant to the state of Illinois because several of our governors have been unable to serve their terms due to breaking the law. So the most recent example of that was when Governor Blagojevich was impeached, and Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn took over as governor. The lieutenant governor also chairs different boards and councils and serving on many committees, often acting as the governor's representative. So kind of if the governor can't be at a committee or be in charge of a committee, the lieutenant governor takes over. So that's the lieutenant governor. Another person is the attorney general. Now, this goes into the part where I'm talking about in the president's cabinet, the attorney general, the secretary of state, they're all appointed by the president. In Illinois, these people are elected. So there are some times where different people from different political parties are serving in the same government together. Okay? The Attorney General shall be the legal officer of the state. So they provide criminal investigations. They legal representation for the state. They advise state offices on legal rights. So if the state gets sued, the Attorney General is the chief lawyer. And our current Attorney General is a man by the name Kwame Brown. Okay. The Secretary of State shall maintain the official records of the acts of the General Assembly and such official records of the executive branch as provided by law. This is Mr. Jesse White, who is our current Secretary of State. Something important about the Secretary of State is not like the federal Secretary of State, who is in charge of when it comes to like relations between foreign nations. Secretary of State is basically the record keeper. They are in charge of driver's license, state records. If your parents or family members own a small business, if they need some license for that, they probably went through the Secretary of State's office for those licenses. Another person is the comptroller. Our comptroller is Susanna Mendoza. And the comptroller shall maintain the state's central fiscal accounts and order payments into and out of the funds held by the treasurer. Basically, the comptroller owns the checkbook of the state, and they say, okay, we need money for this, we need money for this. Oh, we're running out of money. We need to get some more money into the account so we can spend it on this sort of stuff. Very important function for the state. And finally, we have the treasurer. Treasurer shall be responsible for the safekeeping and investment of monies and securities deposited with him for their disbursement upon order of the comptroller. What does that mean? Well, basically, the function of the treasurer of the state of Illinois is to make sure we have enough money to spend. A lot of record keeping, because Illinois is one of the larger states and we have big cities like Chicago, we have a lot more money than other states do, and so there's a lot of accounts to take care of. So those are the federal officers of the state of Illinois, and remember, they are all functioning with different roles and responsibilities to kind of ease the burden off the governor. The governor has a lot of power, but it's delegated to a lot of executive officers. Okay, so that's about the executive officer. I hope you guys are still reading through, and we'll talk more and more about the state of Illinois. But to give you guys a little bit of a challenge to make sure that you're paying attention to the video and watching it the whole way, here's what I want you to do. Underneath this video in Google Classroom, I want you to comment with which of the federal officers, not including the governor, can't say governor, which of the executive officers for the state of Illinois do you think is the most important, and tell me why. Okay? I hope you guys are having a great Wednesday. I hope you guys get outside a little bit this week. It is a beautiful day. Go outside, play in your lawn, and throw something, hopefully nothing sharp. But run around, enjoy this creation with all of us, all right? Happy April Fool's Day, guys. See you later.